Okay. Part 2 with Kim Anno. With our batteries running out, we lost most of the interview there. So, John Zarobell again. I want to ask Kim about her trip to Durban last year, both for the climate conference and the exhibition she did while there, Don't Panic, or Don't Panic, perhaps, is the way to say it. But first, tell us about the conference.
The conference in Durban is called COP17, which is the Conference of the Parties on Climate Change. And it's really over 200 countries that come from all over the world. And they send their environmental ministers, they send their negotiators. The countries' governments are doing negotiations at the same time as the NGOs are meeting. So every country has a group of nonprofits that also go there and set up booths and do projects and then present what they're doing in their own countries and hope to network with other people. So lots of people came from Africa, all over Africa, small communities, big cities, and then other places around the world. Certainly the United States had a big presence there. One of the strangest things I went to was a presentation by the military, the United States military, and they were talking about what is really a military issue in terms of climate change, and their whole presentation was all about the North Pole passage opening up. And so that there's going to be so much glacial melt that there's going to be a new shipping lane, and there's going to be new business. And once there's new business, there's also security issues. So there's going to be people going from Reykjavik to Singapore back and forth very, very easily soon. And the Russians are in there, and so the United States wants to get in there, and that was the whole discussion, like how to make this passage safe, and no discussion about like what's happening to the people there, or the animals, or the plants, but like, wow, it's a boon for business, and then we're gonna be traveling over that North Pole, you know. So I was like, man, this is what my government is thinking about. Anyway, I went as a neutral observer and representative of California College of the Arts, and Christine Metzger, the scientist, and I went, and we attended sessions, and then I presented a session. I presented my art at the conference, and some delegates came and asked me lots of questions. People hadn't seen art at that conference before. In fact, we were the only art school in the whole entire globe that went to that conference and had our banner out there. There are other schools, University of Michigan, Dartmouth, and other schools, but not art departments and not art schools, certainly. Wow. So lots of people were fascinated by us, like, what is it? Why are you coming? It was pretty exciting, actually. And people come with their best selves. They want to change what's happening. They want to reach out. They want to connect. They want to create networks of resistance to both climate change and environmental justice issues. There was a lot of discussion about civil society, and the term civil society was used very freely. And in fact, there was a whole alternative conference going on at the university the University of Durban, about civil society, and people were going and trying to figure out how to define what a civil society is. And at that conference, that side conference, there was also the celebration for the life of Wangari Maathai, who won the Nobel Peace Prize and who was responsible for really spurring the environmental movement in Africa. So to me, the conference was very optimistic, even if the negotiations didn't quite do what they should do. At least from the ground up, people are really organizing themselves and asking the questions of their governments and becoming more articulate about what it is they need. Certainly the developing nations now have a voice, which is great because that hadn't been happening for a long time. Right. And the whole idea of climate debt, which began the previous year, this concept of climate debt and how the developed world is creating a debt that they owe to the climate, to the developing world, and the developing world asking for repayment on that debt is really very interesting, actually. That
is interesting. Yeah. We're flipping the old IMF structural adjustment paradigm.
Yes.
And so tell us about the exhibition that you did. So you not only went as an observer and participated as an activist, but then you also did a show. Besides presenting your work, you did a show while you were there.
The show is called Don't Panic, and it was curated by Gabby Nagobo. And she's a young professor at University of Johannesburg, and a curator and a writer. And she brought mostly African artists together, but I was asked to participate, which was very exciting, in the Durban Gallery, which is a huge gallery. I mean, many, many rooms, some whole rooms with no art in them at all because of the leaky roof, which was to me really quite incredible, the metaphor of that. And she made a catalog, and it was sponsored by the Goethe Institute. And all of the work asked questions about climate. Nothing felt like it was, trying to preach to an audience, but rather really thinking about the nuances of the relationship of aesthetics and environmentalism in refreshing ways, in very multidisciplinary ways. I mean, there were people who did installations with little tiny bags full of water and soot, and many of the young people that I worked with also installed that artist's work, and so there was like this raining cascade of little bags of this soot and water that looked like water droplets from far away, and you get up close and it's all these little bags. The conversations around the show was robust. There were some things written about it, and lots of people came to the opening, including the mayor of Durban, and the woman who's in charge of the whole Southern Africa region in the Goethe Institute, Katarina von, I forget how to say her last name. Anyway, she saw the work that I was making and the beginning rushes of it, and she asked me to think about developing it for a show in Johannesburg, which is now happening this July. So I'm going to be making an installation at the Goethe Institute in Joburg, and I'm going to recreate a paper city, and I'm going to project my film into the city and show a sequence of photographs.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, thanks so much for speaking with me today.
Sure.
And I'm glad to have a little bit of art conversation as part of our global conversation.
Cool.
Right.
All right.